What is the most terrifying part about writing your book? To me, it's coming up with the title because I'm so terrible at writing titles. So today we're going to talk about how to write a good title, and I'm going to share with you what I've learned.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
So why does it scare me so much to have the wrong title? Well, what is it that people use to choose a book? Well, they look at two things. They look at the cover, right? And if the cover attracts them, then they may pick up the book. And they also look at the title. Is the title attractive? Is the title saying something to them? Are they interested enough based on the title to find out what the book is about? So if your title and the book cover are not attracting them, they're going to walk right past it. They're going to grab another book. So you could spend a year, you could spend 5 years writing this amazing novel, and if the cover and the title are not good, they're not enticing, then what's going to happen is it's not going to get picked up. So we'll talk about covers another day, but let's talk about titles today. And what is it that we can do to at least create a great title? And you may have control over your title or you may not. So it depends on if you are published with a traditional publisher or if you are self-publishing and you have control of the whole publishing process. But even with traditional publishers, I'm not going to say most of the time. I don't even know if it's most of the time, but they will tend to go with your title if they think it's a good title, and if not, they will ask to change it, or they will modify it in some way. They may not change it completely. They might just tweak it and change it so that it is more enticing to readers, and they're experts at doing that, so they know what they're doing. Now, I can think of maybe one time that I had the perfect title and that I knew pretty much what that book was going to be called from the beginning. Now, publishers have kept my titles for, I would say, the majority of my books. They changed one completely and they changed another one a little bit. But there was only one where I thought this is the perfect title, and it was when I was writing under the pseudonym Laura Rios, and I wrote Becoming Latina in 10 Easy Steps. Now, that title is great, and I will explain why for a variety of reasons, but mainly because it tells you what's going on here, right? Becoming Latina, and then it's about a woman who wants to become more Latina, and she decides to do it in 10 easy steps. So this tells you a lot about the book. So I'm going to talk about, again, how to create that perfect title and why one title might be really good and another one not so good. Now, the first thing the title should do is kind of create some kind of curiosity or have some questions. So I would get questions from people about that title. So people would say, well, what do you mean by becoming Latina? And why, what are the 10 steps? And how do you become more Latina? That's impossible, right? So it would create conversations. When I was sitting at bookstores to do book signings, people would come and they would pick up the book and they would look at that title and they would ask me questions about the book. So that's good because that means it's creating some kind of curiosity. It's creating some kind of interest, and that's what you want your title to do. That's one thing you want your title to do. So there are 7 things that I think your title should do. So these are the 7 secrets to writing a great title. Okay, so the first one I already said. It is to create some kind of interest or question. So the second thing that your book title should do is give the reader some kind of glimpse into what your genre is about, right? So when they look at that title, they should know, is this going to be a romance? Is this going to be a thriller? Is this going to be a horror novel? What is this going to be exactly? Another thing that a title will do is sometimes come from the theme of the story. So think of the theme of the story. What is your story about? What is the plot about? Is it from a story about somebody who moves from being very fearful to somebody who becomes courageous at the end? So maybe you might want to have the the word courageous in the title somewhere. So think about the theme and think about, is there any word, any keyword that you can pull from that theme and use it as part of your title. The fourth way that we can get a title is from an emotionally charged scene of the book. So there might be something in a scene that maybe the climax of the story or a key moment where we realize, oh wow, you know, this happened in the scene, and we want to use that as part of that title. Maybe there was an abduction, let's say, in that scene that changed the whole plot, right? Where now the parents are looking for this abducted child. So maybe the word abduction would go into the title somehow. So in a more emotionally charged moment that changes the story in some way, that can be used in your title. And something else about titles is that they should be original and you know, a little bit unique, so that if you Googled that title that you thought of, there wouldn't be other books that would have the same title. You don't want your book to be the same as 10 other books or more that have that same title. Now, with Becoming Latina in 10 Easy Steps, there were no other books, especially during that time. Interestingly, after that, there were other books starting with Becoming. Michelle Obama, right? Her whole book is called Becoming. So it can, you know, obviously later on, other people might end up with a similar title, not because you chose it, just because of just, you know, life, serendipity, whatever, right? But look when you're first creating your title and see, is my title original? Is it unique? Are there other books that have the same title? And if there are, you might want to change your mind and change that title. Okay, other keywords that you can use are just keywords, again, that match the genre, that match what you're writing. So for me, that book Latina, I knew I wanted to use the word Latina because it was the kind of the gist of the whole story is she wants to become more Latina to prove to her family that she is just as Latina as they are, when she finds out that her mom had an affair with somebody who was not Latino, and so she fears that half of her biology is not Latina, and maybe that's why she has never felt a huge tie to her culture, and so she tries to prove that she really is just as Latina. So Latina was a huge thing, right? I had to have that in the title. I knew that. But there are like, let me take a look at some examples here. So in romances, we have words like heated, hard, exposed, right? You don't want to use cliches. You want to kind of avoid cliches if you can, but there are keywords to certain genres. Other things, you know, thrillers and suspense novels. If you took I took a look at a few of them, and they have words like hard, I'm sorry, dark, night, terror, dead, cry. Okay, so those are letting us know again, right, that ties to the genre, but those are keywords that might might attract that type of reader. And the seventh thing that about your title is you want to keep it short. So you don't want to have super, super long titles. I was pushing it with Becoming Latina in 10 Easy Steps. That was a pretty long title. Some examples of what I've seen out there. Peter James has a book called Left You Dead. Gives us some idea of the genre. It's nice and short. Yvette Edwards has one just called The Mother. Very short. Okay. Andrew Grant, Die Twice. Again, there's that die, right? There's Christian Lauren has Beautiful Bastard. So kind of gives us an idea of the genre and some keywords. Kate Field has Finding Home. So makes me think of what? Women's fiction. Okay. So home is a big one for women's fiction. So where do you start then? What do you do? Like I said, writing titles is really tough for me. It's not something that's super easy. So I have to spend some time doing it. So writing, I just start by following those steps. So I think, okay, well, what are the themes? What is my story about? I write down some of the themes that I think fit within my novel. Then I will write down the plot, you know, just the kind of the plot of the story, not the whole thing, just kind of summarizing just the main thing. Like, you know, if I had to sell this novel, what is this story about? So what is the plot of the story? Also writing down those key scenes and those key moments where I think something really dramatic is happening, and can I pull any words from there that might work well in the in as part of the title. What are some of the key words that I think I could use, you know, like Latina and dark and all that stuff, right, that we just talked about. Also, sometimes some interesting dialogue from the story. Sometimes dialogue, something that somebody says within your book, is interesting enough that you could say, you know, that summarizes almost my entire novel, and I can use that as part of the title. So just write down what are some kind of interesting pieces of dialogue from your book. Also write down if there's any special locations. So there are some books. There was one called Shanghai Girls by Lisa C. So sometimes the location is part of your title as well, and that can be interesting. Also, you might write down like a time when your story takes place. So sometimes it might take place during a holiday, right? Christmas something, Christmas love, Christmas stars, right? Or Jennifer Weiner has a big summer, so that tells us, right in the title, that it's going to be a great summer read because it's going to take place during the summer. So people that are interested in her books are going to really like it, especially if they know that she writes these type of books. So having all of this in front of you, all these keywords, all these key scenes, all the dialogue, all this stuff right there, I think is helpful, because then you can start to pick and choose and put things together and see how they fit, and hopefully come up with a good title or an interesting title that is unique to your book, that it doesn't sound like any other book, that is, again, special, unique, short, and reflects your book, your story. And the one thing I didn't really talk about is kind of the tone of your book. So if it is a happy summer read, then your title should reflect that sort of lightness. If it's a dark thriller, then your title should affect that. That's why we want those type of words like dark and cry, and all of those type of keywords that help us think, set the mood and think of the genre of that book. So I hope that's helpful. Like I said, writing the title brings me a lot of anxiety, because it's a challenge to get it right. And if you don't get it right, there's so much writing on being able to come up with a good title and have that have that be your selling point for your book, that it can be very stressful. So and write down many titles. It doesn't have to be that very first one. Even if you kind of piece it all together with all these different parts, it might still not be right. There might be something else that you might want to add. You might want to ask people that you know, well, here are the top 10 titles that I'm thinking of. What do you think? What does it make you think? What feeling does it give you? Which one would you buy if it was on a bookshelf and you were walking by? Which one would attract you? So get some feedback, ask friends, ask experts in writing and publishing, if you have friends or somebody who can give you some advice. But play around with it and have some fun with it, and then hopefully you will choose the perfect title for your book. I hope this has been helpful. If it has, please hit the like and the share button, and subscribe to the channel so that you will be notified next time that I have a video. It will be hopefully next Friday, and hopefully you will come back and join me and watch the next video. See you then.